times 2 times 2. Wait. After 3 hours. So times 2. Yeah, I mean, this is the other way of looking at it. You could say, hey, I've got 20 times 2 times 2. You just figure out how many times you're multiplying by 2, and you could break up the 20 instead of breaking up that. It doesn't really matter, as long as you ultimately know how to, well, I should have circled all these probably. As long as you ultimately know how to do all of that, you should be fine. Questions? Okay. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's use a name, random name. Arlia, okay, it's a very random name. So, Arlia is depositing $100 into a bank because she's like, I'm making dollar bill, yo. What? That's what people are, that's what the kids are saying these days. She gets 5% interest, which is incredible, and it says compounded yearly, which basically means that it continues to keep on growing based on what you already put in it. So if you make like $10 this year, next year you make you make the interest off that $110. And that says for 5 years. How much money is she gonna have at the end? This is the most important part of the section because this is something you're actually definitely going to use every day if you're trying to use numbers to make sure that your money is working for you when you're older, which you definitely want to make your money work for you. I looked at, so Mrs. Brunel and I put a bunch of money in it. We're not quite at a 5% interest rate, but it's a little bit lower than that. And we put money in that we're like saving in for a house into, it's not, banks aren't going to give you a 5% interest rate because that's like not, that's like insane. That's like really, really, really high. But mutual funds, which is kind of like stocks and bonds, a little bit like using the stock market, that you can put it into there, and you can get it probably like around a 4%, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. But if you leave it in there for a long period of time, it's going to grow. And we put, a lot more than $100 in there. And even over the last 2 years, I went and looked at it this last week, and my jaw dropped. I was like, what? We didn't do anything with our money? We made that much more money off of it just by doing nothing, just because we talked to a financial advisor, and a financial advisor was like, hey, this thing grows like by 4% a year. Might be more or less in any given year, but if you put it in there for a long time, it's going to grow. And we're like, oh, okay. We tried it, and I was just like, how are we it was incredible how much money we're making just because, one, we're putting in a little bit more money at a time every time, and then two, we're also, the interest rate keeps on going up or down, but like it's making money over time, so we're making money basically just by not really doing a whole lot of stuff and putting stuff in the bank, or not the bank, but stocks and bonds in this way. But anyways, to figure out how much money you're gonna have for this, so anytime you wanna figure out, hey, if I put this amount of money in at this amount of rate for this amount of years, this is the formula you're gonna want. So I call this not the FRO, but the formula to get rich. Ready? P1 plus R to the T power.
That's how I get rich.
That's how you get rich.
I spelled rich wrong.
Or at least that's how you kind of build a foundation for understanding how to get rich. That's definitely how you spell rich.
No, I spelled it wrong.
Oh, she spelled wrong. Okay, so P stands for principal. Oh, I don't know how to spell that principal. I think it is AL. Pretty darn sure. Yeah, I know. Miss Gromowski is your principal. That's how my 7th day grade teacher always was like, Mr. Erdman, I want you to know that I am your pal.
Why do you say pale like that?
Because that's how he always said it.
Wouldn't it be PLE instead of PAL?
I don't think so. Not for this one. Didn't it say that? Yeah, principal is AL for this kind of principle. Can I help you? No, you're just stretching? Like a goon? Okay. R is so P is principal, R is the rate, and T is what? Time.
That was a guess.
So, what is the principal in here?
See if the.
Principal is the original amount that you put in.
100.
Yeah,
Put it
100
where?
Wasn't creepy at all.
that you're putting to the formula. You're gonna wanna write this down if you're not already. Rate is what's the rate right here?
How many years? 5%.
5%.
Let's go.
And time is
5 years.
5. So, you wanna take this and replace it. P is 100. 1 plus, the rate is 5%. Do I write in here 5%?
No.
What do I write instead of 5%?
It's 5.
Right.
Not just
Um,
5.
You write.
Hmm?
0.05.
What?
0.05.
0.05. Think about what percent means. Percent means per 100. And the T is time, 5 years, so it's to the 5th power. This is when you're gonna wanna get a calculator out for.
No. Won't it just be 1 plus 0.05?
Oh, I wrote something wrong up
And
there.
then whatever
Nice job.
times that.
So right here,
1,
I wrote that wrong. This should be 100
19.
times that. So this becomes 100 times 1.05 to the 5th power.
5 equals 18.
What?
5 equals 18.
5 equals 18.
Nope, never mind.
You gotta 1.05 to the 5th power. So I put in my calculator 100 times 1.05, and then I put that to the 5th power.
How do you do the 5th power?
I will show you, young Padawan. My very young Padawan.
That's so weird.
Please don't.
Because he's always like, ah, yes, my very young. Even though like he's not that much older than Anakin. It's not like he's like super old.
Imagine watching Star Wars.
Did you say imagine watching Star Wars?
Frank, you watch all these movies and you don't watch Star Wars.
Yeah.
Really?
Get out.
That's a good movie too.
What?
Get out?
Get out?
That is
Get
a
out.
good movie.
Alright, so 100
110
times 1.05. You guys know how to do that. So to the 5th power, see this little button here that's called a caret? Yes, you see it?
No.
Right there.
It's called a
Look
carrot.
at the top
Yeah,
of
it's
the
called
house.
a carrot.
And then you type 5, and then it works.
Oh.
So basically, this does, remember, exponents comes first, so it does 1.05 times 1.05 times 1.05 times 1.05 times 1.05, and then that does that times 100.
So that's how much.
So 1.05 to the 5th power, if we move the decimal here, we can see it's 1.27628153563, blah, 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 blah. But then when you multiply it times 100, it shifts the decimal point over $127. So if you are able to find a 5% interest rate, which if you invest your money into stocks, or if your money is like that mutual fund that I talked about, let's talk about even if you're able to save $1,000 a month. So if you're like, or no, $1,000 a year. So let's say you save $1,000 a year and put it at that 4% interest rate that I had. Whoops. Store to the 5th power. So your $1,000 turns into $200 more over 5 years just by you doing nothing to it. So if you're like, hey, I want to try to start a mutual fund for when I'm saving money up because I want to start saving for something way down the line. Because remember, the big thing with this is, it's something, if you feel like you're going to use it within the next 2 years, I would just put it in a regular savings account because it's not going to grow that much in the first place, and you don't want, because it can, remember, it can go up or down, but over time, it's going to go up. Like in 2008, around the time you guys were born, there was the Great Recession. Some people pulled their money out of the stock market at that time, and they lost a lot of money because of it. If you were one of those people that you're like, hey, I'm just gonna ride this because the money that I'm putting in the stock market is not money that I need right now, but I want it 3-4 years down the road. 3-4 years after the Great Recession, you got most if not all of that money back, and then it kept on building. If you're putting it up right, if you're looking at what it is right now, 13 years after the Great Recession, if you were to keep that money in there still, and maybe you would have needed it, but if you were to have kept that money in there, the stock market would have gotten all that money back and then even way more. So especially if you're like, hey, I'm leaving this in my mutual fund for a long time, then investing in a mutual fund can be a really good investment even as a young investor. Well, especially as a young investor, I should say, because that money is gonna grow a lot over time. That being said, make sure you have your retirement account set up too. Anyways though, there's your formula for how to get rich, or how to save money, or all that goodness. So here is your example. You guys get data practice number 13, 15, and then you guys can start on your assignment. I'm gonna leave that up there, but did I say 13, 15, 13, and 14? If you get done with both those, you can start.